think I'm on. I never know. You know, it'd be great is if the streaming services came with like a little guy who, when you were live, he'd do this sort of thing, and you know for sure. Welcome everybody to Dan's Den. This is one of my videos right now. I'd be doing okay, 3, 2, 1. Welcome everybody to Dad's Den of Pop Culture. This is live stream number 29. Done 29 of these already. It's kind of amazing how time just slides right by, never stopping. Oh, Lord. I got a hey from Lady Wendelin. Awesome. Hey. The great Fat Albert, ladies and gentlemen. What's going on, man? Sunday. It's pretty nice out in Vegas, but it's a little humid, which we're not well equipped for, because we get like maybe a week of humid days a year. And I actually don't mind humidity. My family, extended family, primarily lives in Iowa and Florida. And so we'd go back and visit in the summers. And humidity didn't bother me. But when like you're used to dry and suddenly the humidity rolls in, and it's rolling in with like, 110 degrees sometimes, it can be a little rough. It's not that hot though now. We're actually cooling down a little bit here in September. But that's only so summer can come back and bite us in the ass somewhere in late September, early October, just to let us know I'll be back and I have no mercy. So enjoy fall and winter while you can. Poor fools. Okay. So what do we got going on in the world of the pop culture? Hold on a second. I'm gonna turn my recording thing off. I think I just paused it. There we go. Okay, good. Hopefully I'm still streaming. But my setup here is like not the greatest in the world, and it actually takes up a lot of my CPU, which I feel probably screws things up a little bit. And I wanted to see. Oh, there we go. Fins is on, so obviously good. I am still streaming. I wanted to see what that would do to the CPU usage, and it actually takes it way down. And I just kept forgetting to do it over and over and over and over again. How's it going, Fins? I was just talking about humidity. I know you're down in Florida, so you get plenty of that. So what do we got going? What was going on this week? No major news. Oh, video. Oh, nice. Yeah, we had the Williams video pinball for the Roku. God, for the what the hell was that thing called? The Nintendo thing that you move around and do shit with. I've totally forgotten what that thing was called. Lady Wendell will probably pop in with the name of it. Anyways, it was fun. Yeah, I had a good time. But what I will say is this: like, I got really good at Funhouse. Like, really good at that. Oh, what? No, not the Switch. It's before the Switch. It's the one where you could like they did the exercise stuff. Yeah, Pong. That was it. Any rate, so I got really good at the Wii. Thank you. Good Lord. I got really good at Funhouse, right? So then we go to the Las Vegas Pinball Hall of Fame, which was big then, and it's even bigger now. And if you are into pinball, holy moly, you got to go to this place. Like, they probably have at least, I don't know, you could probably say hundreds of machines, and you wouldn't be wrong. They're all playable for the most part. Sometimes they'll be down for maintenance, but overall, they're playable. You plunk in your quarters, you play the games, and the money, a lot of the money goes to charity. The dude who has it, runs it, kind of keeps what he needs to keep the place running, and I guess to feed himself, gives a lot of money away to charity. So I go there, and they got Funhouse there. It's like the real Funhouse. I was like, oh, dude, I'm good at this one. Boy, you start playing the real machine. I was not that good at the real Funhouse. And of course, with that one, you're actually paying money. So it's like, I don't really want to invest a lot of money to get good at this thing at this point. I'll just go home and play the Wii and enjoy being excellent. They actually had quite a few that were on that, I think it was Williams pinball thing at the Hall of Fame. So if you're ever going through Vegas, it's a big place now on Las Vegas Boulevard. I don't know what the cross street is. It doesn't occur to me right offhand. It used to be a smaller place on East Trop that was kind of more for locals. And it was fun, man. They had some video games. They had just some weird like oddities. Of course, they had like ice hockey, an air hockey table. They had this interesting thing that was designed to like sort of massage your feet. So you'd step on this thing and you'd put in the money, and basically it would vibrate your feet, and it would vibrate them so rapidly that it kind of almost made them numb. You felt a weird tingle going up your legs. So I don't know how much that ever helped anybody who was like walking on a boardwalk and their feet were sore. But at any rate, no, you didn't derail. There's no way to derail these streams, dude. It's impossible because I don't know what the hell I'm doing half the time. I mean, I set stuff up, but dude, derailing is like the entire point of what I'm going for with this thing. So anyways, let's get on my so-called track. I had a couple things to talk about this morning, neither of which was massively important. And by the way, hey, Man of War 665, Neighbor of the Beast, welcome to the chat. So I saw this thing pop up from Summit Comics, announcing the launch of a new interconnected superhero universe written, drawn by more than a dozen different creators. And which hopefully will be successful because, you know, outside of people trying to like overthrow the world or, you know, I don't know, invoke a demonic invasion of the earth, I always hope people are successful no matter what they're doing. Like, yeah, cool. And it got me thinking a little bit about how comic book universes are created. And hopefully, like I said, this will be successful, but I foresee that it could be a little bit tricky because of the number of creators that are involved who presumably all own their own properties. So how will they mesh together? Which kind of makes me think of old DC Comics or National Comics, if you want to get down to it at the time, where, you know, they had, and they didn't even have all of this all at once. I think there were some different company ownerships, but Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, the original Green Lantern, original Flash, quite a few other characters, Spectre, Dr. Fate. And all of them really, even though there was some ownership by the comic company, different creators, each one really its own individual strip. So like you'd get several different strips talking about a Gotham City. They weren't talking about Batman's Gotham City. They were just all making up a fake city to be in. Like I think Hawkman and Hawkgirl were in Gotham, and I don't know that there was ever any idea that it was the same place that Batman was. I can remember an old Vigilante issue where he goes to Gotham City. Again, I don't know that it had anything to do with Batman. It was just a fake name for a city. That was it. They weren't really interconnected. Now then you got Gardner Fox with Justice Society of America, and that kind of puts all those characters together. You had Batman, Superman collabs in World's Finest, you know. So they kind of gradually start coming together for little crossover events, but they all still very much were their own thing. And it would take a while before you were getting like characters referenced. So it was a universe, but it was not really a universe. Now Marvel, when it shows up, kind of right from the start is looking at doing something like that. Eventually, they're all set in New York City. Although if you read the early Fantastic Fours, which they've been doing those facsimiles, they're in Center City or Central City. I think it was Center. I think it was Center City for like an issue or two before it's obviously New York. But there was kind of a desire, okay, let's put all these characters together right from the start. And it was aided by the fact that Stan Lee is scripting all of it. And he's probably co-plotting to some degree with Kirby, with Ditko, with whoever, on like all of their original books. So it had this sort of central place. Of course, apparently one of the most forgetful guys in comics, but still knowing enough that he could keep it together. And it gave it a consistency. You know, a lot of stuff being drawn by Kirby keeps it consistent. You know, the Ditko stuff, there's a certain consistency. So there's a couple different artists, but still, when you're working with a lot of different artists who have very different styles, and keep in mind, if you look at the old Golden Age stuff, a lot of it looks very similar until you get a few, early standout artists, like Jack Cole. I just did the Plastic Man, review of the early Plastic Man stuff. And that's a dude who's working very different kind of stuff. His stuff did not look like a lot of the Golden Age stuff that was around, but a lot of that stuff, it looks similar enough that it isn't jarring to put, the Golden Age Flash and Golden Age Dr. Fate in the same book with each other. It didn't look jarring to have Batman and Superman being drawn by, I'm trying to think who was doing a lot of that stuff back then. Was it Kurt Swan yet? I don't know if it might not have been Swan, but at any rate, they meshed pretty easily. But if you have modern day artists with very different styles, that could be a little bit trickier to make it work. And you do get a lot of indies who do stuff with like a little crossover event with their two characters. This is a bigger deal. So it'll be interesting to see if they can put it together, make it work, make it live, reference it in their own works. And I hope it's successful. I think that'd be pretty fun. Genuine Comics has a pretty cool thing going. But again, you got Dave Brink as sort of the central figure in it of guiding this stuff, and it keeps it pretty consistent. And I think he has artists that don't have vastly different styles. They got their own styles, but it all meshes pretty well, So now obviously over time, Marvel has different people writing stuff, and it has more disparate styles of art. But by then, everything had been woven together pretty well, that it wasn't too jarring. Although I think once you get into the late 80s and into the 90s, maybe some of that starts to break down a little bit as you're adding some writers who like to deconstruct. Sometimes Punisher didn't feel like he fit with some of the other stuff in the Marvel universe. It starts breaking up a little bit. Frank Miller introduces some different vibes into Batman, etc. But overall, I think both universes were well-founded enough that they could do that without a problem. So be interesting to see. I hope it works. If it's not Marvel or DC, my stores are having trouble getting things right now from Vincent's book. Yeah, the distribution thing is a problem. Now, these are folks who do, these are a lot of creators who have done Kickstarters, who working with Summit. I think maybe they're working on kickstarting to begin with. And maybe they want to try to get stuff into the stores after that fact, because I think they are aiming at being like an Image or something, that obviously not necessarily as big as DC or Marvel, but something. Now, I mean, a lot, he got some heat for it, but Ripa with the Ripaverse, he's like, I'm going to distribute to the best of my ability myself. Got the warehouse, got the van, etc. And not a bad idea. Now, obviously, his stuff's not, to the best of my knowledge, showing up in a lot of comic shops yet. But he at least has the groundwork for doing something like that on his own if he has to. Obviously, a comic book shop, if it wanted to, and I think he does work with people on that kind of stuff for pricing, but, they could buy like, 25 issues of something, get it shipped to them from him, put it on their shelves and sell it if that's what they want to do. So he's not kind of reliant, because that was his worry, was like, if I'm, it's a new venture, and if I'm overly reliant on anybody for anything and they pull the plug on me for just business reasons or political reasons, I'm screwed. The venture's over, and he wanted to protect himself to the extent that he could. So he invested a lot of money into that warehouse in order to be able to do that stuff. It's fraught. It's tough. It's what you realize now is, with a lot of the indie guys and a lot of the small press stuff, is the massive value that Marvel and DC brought to comic book creators. Yeah, they did screw them a lot. That's not a value that they were bringing. But the idea that you had people there who could handle accounting, who could handle distribution, who could handle marketing, and you could focus on drawing comics, writing comics, inking comics, etc., with a shared universe, that was really, really, really valuable and really useful for a lot of these folks. Now, if they played it more straight with their people, that would have helped a lot. Unfortunately, the way the comic companies are set up now, like, it seems the pay is even worse at this point. The editorial seems a little bit out of touch with everything. And they're not really providing a lot of value to their creators per se. And that's why so many old timers have just said, okay, I'm doing my own thing, I'm out of here. But, they now they have to handle distribution. They have to handle marketing. So they got to spend a lot of time online on social media to try to get things out there. And that's a big, investment of time and effort. And especially if you're an artist, but you're not necessarily a good writer, it's going to be a little tougher for you to produce your own books. If you're a good writer, but you're not an artist, you got to hire an artist now, so that's going to be an expense that maybe was going to be a little easier if it's a big corporate structure, assigning people to different things and having people who can, because let's say you hire an artist and they get sick and now your book is delayed several months. Whereas once upon a time, a Marvel, if an artist is like, dude, I can't do this, they have somebody else jump in and finish it up or do that particular issue, or they got an issue sitting aside that, for use in case of problems. So it's just one of those little solo kind of, one issue comics that just throws in. It's a lot of value to that stuff. And it's kind of disappearing for a lot of these folks as they figure things out, So at any rate, good luck, Summit Comics. I hope it works well for you guys. And I hope you sell 1 million comics, man. That'd be good. That's a great image. It looks very cool. So we'll see. Hopefully it meshes well, but I think it's going to be tricky. I hope they manage to weather it. All right. K-pop Demon Hunters. No, this is not a review. I have not seen it. My wife actually saw it and she kind of liked it. She thought it was pretty cool. But I think what was interesting to me about this, streaming on Netflix, doing extremely well. They release it into the movie theaters for like a couple days. Does pretty darn well there too. The reason I bring this up is we're constantly told from the mega corporations that control entertainment at this point, God help us, that, well, we have to do remakes. We have to do these re-envisionings of things because people just won't support new things. It's got to be familiar. It's the only way we can do anything. It has to be familiar. Of course, they take what's familiar and then they change it and twist it around and make it unfamiliar a lot of times. But we got to do that. We got to do that. We got to do that. Now, I don't know the whole history of K-pop Demon Hunters. I don't know if it's like a manga or the Korean version of manga that got turned into this, or if it was original. But it's definitely original to American audiences, right? We never heard of this before. And look at the way it's being embraced and enjoyed by people. And I think it really does put the lie to this idea that all we can do are remakes. The reason a lot of the new material that comes out of corporate media doesn't do particularly well is because it's not very good, or it's meant for a very niche audience. You know, if you produce something that at most 10,000 people on Earth are going to enjoy, the best you can expect is for 10,000 people to buy your product. And you're probably not going to get all of them, right? So if you're making stuff that doesn't have wide appeal, you're not going to get a lot of sales. If you're making something that's not that great, you're not going to have a lot of good sales. You're not going to build a new IP. I think what we're seeing with a lot of stuff from Korea, from Japan, etc., China, making its way over to the United States is that it is frankly better made. You know, it's got its own kind of vibe to it that may not appeal to certain, you know, folks in the US. I mean, I'll be honest with you, a lot of this stuff doesn't really, you know, grab me, but it's grabbing a lot of people. And I think it's because there's a certain amount of quality to it. And it's an internal sort of quality. You know what I mean? Like you may look at K-pop Demon Hunters, and if you're comparing it to like, you know, high art, you might go, oh, thanks, sir. But, you know, within itself, it's like what it's doing well, and it stays true to itself. And when it stops staying true to itself, it may have some problems. I'm actually going to talk about a movie a little later that I think is a good example of staying true to itself. But so I just thought it was kind of interesting, you know, that we get the corporations and we have to do the 50th version of this particular movie. It's the only thing people will watch. No. It's the corporate executives at these places are not particularly creative, and they're not particularly smart, to be quite frank. And they're super scared of doing anything new, because if they do something new and it fails, they might lose their jobs. Although right now it does not look as though that is actually the case, because they're failing spectacularly with very well-known products. It doesn't seem like anybody's losing their jobs. Maybe some smaller folks, some small fish in the pond are losing their jobs, sacrificial lambs, so to speak. But it doesn't look like the big people are losing their jobs. Hey, you know, the genius who screwed up Cracker Barrel, I haven't heard about her departing from the company yet. Now, you know, they spent millions and millions of dollars to do all this rebrand stuff, and it did not work. And yes, they were warned by one of the co-founders that this was not going to work. They were warned by a big investor, not the biggest, but a big investor, in a 120-page PowerPoint explaining why this was a bad idea. And they forged right ahead and did it anyways. And now all the money that was spent and all the time lost, gone. And the knuckle nut who's in charge, still in charge. So I don't know why an executive would be worried about failing at this point, because apparently you can't get fired in corporate America. I guess that's good to know. But like, here's something new. And we used to get a lot of that. Like, in fact, all the crap that they're remaking, it was all new one time. There was a time where nobody'd heard of Superman. They had the Shadow, they had Doc Savage, they had the Spider, they had Nick Carter, like Private Eye or Detective. I can't remember which one it was. Lots of different characters, you know, and characters from classic fiction. And into the middle of it wanders Superman. I mean, if you're talking comic strips, you already had Popeye. You had, you know, a lot of great comic strips at the time. Here comes Superman, and people go, whoa, that's really cool. And it was pretty well done. So Superman becomes a thing. So the idea that we can't introduce new, everything was new at some point. Of course you can introduce new, but it's got to have a certain amount of quality attached to it, because there's also lots of Golden Age comic strips and comic books that did not make it. You know, there's characters that Marvel and DC introduced that frankly didn't make it. And they might pop up later on because they're still in the stable, but it happens. You try new stuff out, some of it fails. Every season on TV, whole bunch of new TV shows, most of them failed. Every year in movies, whole bunch of little smaller movies coming out, and they didn't all do particularly well. Some would become cult favorites. Some of them would find new life on video cassette later on and, you know, become a big deal. But lots of small original things put out, and many of them failed, but that's how you did it. You had to have this churn to find out what was going to be successful. They don't want to do any of that in corporate America right now. You know, they overthink everything. And what do they end up producing is stuff that is pretty damn mediocre, to be quite frank. And it's not performing particularly well. They get a few successes, no doubt about it, but not like they want to. So anyways, I just thought K-Pop Demon Hunters is a good example of something that's relatively new, that seems to be catching on and very popular. Got to wake up, Hollywood. They're eating your lunch. You know, they're eating your lunch. And if you ain't been fired yet, the pink slips are coming. The pink slips are coming. All right. There's my pontificating for the morning on these two things. So I got a couple new things in the den this week. Hey, I got a new book out of the 50 Cent bin. Oh, Manowar says, never helps that the derivative tripe made from each property constantly alienates the relatively small. But exactly. Yeah. I was just talking about that with my wife. I'm going like, you know, comic books were always niche. I mean, there were comic books that would maybe sell like, you know, 1 million, 2 million copies, right? Way back when. And that was niche, boys and girls. That, you know, in a country with 250 million people at the time, like almost 350 something million now, only selling 1 or 2 million is pretty niche. Now the fact that there's, you know, they're selling 5 to, you know, 25,000 for a lot of stuff, or even 100,000. That's real niche. I mean, right? So you do have small bases for a lot of these things, and they can be popular with bigger groups of people if you do well, but you got to do it right. And you got to keep it widely popular, which means what you should do is you focus on, you know, good action adventure type stuff, right? A little bit of character development, but you don't actually need it as much as a lot of people think. Especially if it's character driven, you need to see a cool character in different situations. So action adventure, a little comedy, a little bit of drama, put a little romance in there, you're going to do fine, right? If it turns into a political screed, no matter what the politics are, it's probably not going to do that well. But yeah, so I picked this up, 50 Cent bin. And if you can notice, this once belonged to Jimmy Lankford. So Jimmy, I got your comic, man. Hey, Liberty, how's it going, man? Just happened to drop in, glad to see you are still going strong. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. But here's what's cool about this. So 50 Center, and I'm like, oh, it's Marvel Team Up. I'm down. And then I opened it up. And, dude, Bill Mantlo and John Byrne. Come on, Spider-Man versus Hulk? Well, they're probably not actually fighting each other, but still. So nice pickup from the 50 Cent bin this week. I didn't really pick up much. I got the new X-Men facsimile, which I think is going to round out the whole Phoenix saga. I think they're going to be done after that with those facsimiles. They still got some Fantastic Four going. And I grabbed a few old copies of The Defenders, one of my favorite books from back in the day. Which, by the way, speaking of Disney not knowing what the hell they're doing, could they not have, after the Avengers were pretty much done, especially if you're going to retire Iron Man, Cap, etc., you should have been setting the stage for the Defenders to become like the new Avengers for you for like the next 5, 6, 7 years. You could have had, if you'd done them well, you got your Submariner, you got your Silver Surfer, you got Doctor Strange, who you already had. And his first movie did pretty well, you know. You got the Hulk already established. You throw in a few other characters, introduce who you need to introduce. You got something there. Instead, let's not do that. I did want to also show this up. Now, I already talked about this comic, but I just read it last night. And, dude, first of all, you got art from Mike Vosberg. Like, dude, Mike Vosberg can do a pretty legit Deja Thoris, I gotta say. But what I love though is you got the ad for the Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the 70s remake, you know, with Donald Sutherland, and that's pretty amazing. It's one of the cool things, you know, if you get in trade paperbacks and an omnibus and things like that, you're generally not going to get the ads, right? And the ads are some of the best things in these books. Shogun Warriors, so they're just introducing that one, and check out the full color posters that are in black and white, of course. But you got, some Charlie's Angels, Linda Carter in there. The Coneheads. Was there also? I mean, look, there's another Deja Thoris. I know Vosberg, I think primarily from Savage She-Hulk. There was another ad in here for some. Oh, here it was. Yeah. Dude, Power Man and Iron Fist. This is when they kind of teamed them together, which is an awesome looking illustration. Very much like an old movie poster and stuff. Oh, right, Raimi? Yeah, I know. I picked up a bunch of John Carter's out of the... Man of War, I know. I picked up a bunch of John Carter's out of a 50-cent bin. Always wanted to get a few. And I'm like, dude, these are awesome. Definitely something I'm going to start grabbing because they're pretty darn good. But this is the first one I saw done by Vosberg. And I'm like, holy crap, that is good. All right, so other new stuff that arrived. This was done through Ripasend from Yellow Flash, Mighty Golden Patriot. I got the Kelsey Shannon cover. Wherever Kelsey Shannon is at the moment, God bless him. John Dillard is the artist on this one. Invisible Art Studio doing letters. Literature Devil lead editor, Carol Brown editor, etc. So, not bad, especially for a first outing. I kind of like that imagery there. It's set during World War II. Our hero is a pilot who is downed over North Africa, and that leads to him getting these powers. It's got sort of a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers thing going for it. The early pages are very much action film sort of territory, and it moves really fast. In fact, some of it, I love Warlord, dude. Yeah, I got a bunch of Warlords. I got probably more than I should. What got me early on, it's almost like a Golden Age comic book. It moves quick, and it's a lot of action. And it was pretty cool. I liked it overall. But when I got to the end of it, and it is sort of like, I don't think it's explicitly, I just stuck it to the friggin', thank God that's a nice slick cover, so it came off of there. I don't think it's explicitly like, Golden Patriot #1, but it clearly is a Golden Patriot #1. There's going to be a continuation of it. But the thing that got me was I got to the end and I'm like going, okay, so like, who is this dude exactly? And that's the one thing I missed from it. You do get to see him like learning to use his powers a little bit, and there's a evil version, blah blah blah. It's like it's a good setup and everything. But like when I read ISOM #1, you learn a little bit about who the character Avery is outside of doing superhero stuff. Actually, you get a lot of that in that particular book. And you go, okay, I kind of dig that. Like, I like this person kind of on a personal level. He's kind of interesting to me. I want to see where he goes from here. This one, I didn't get quite as much of that. I'm not saying it's not there at all. You do get a little bit, a few snippets. But I think I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of who this guy is, and maybe see him having to make some harder choices during the book. It's sort of like, well, should I go out there and fight the Ratsies, and protect innocent people? That's not really a hard decision to make as a hero in a comic book. Of course, you got some of the ultimate bad guys there. So not bad. I liked it. I like the art for the most part. I just would have liked to seen a little bit more, personal stuff there in the book. That's like my only complaint about it. But we'll see. I might grab some more. Oh yeah, Man of War's talking about Mike Grell. Raimi bringing up the Warlord. Yeah, That's some good stuff. The Warlord's awesome. They did him in one of the Justice League Unlimiteds. They had him go down to the, center of the earth. Skartaris, right? I think it's something like that. At any rate, they did pretty good with it too. And boy, if you're talking about good girl art, the Warlord does not disappoint you. Also got a delivery from McFarlane Toys, the Super Friends Cheetah. Yeah, that's the only one from this wave that I picked up because it's not a series that I wanted to massively collect. I got the Green Lantern because he was like my favorite character on Super Friends. I got Cheetah in this one because I think they did like a really fantastic job on the face sculpt. I was like really impressed with it. And you know what we're going to do live on camera? I'm going to pop this baby open. Now, it looks like we got some stuff strapping it in, so we'll see what I can do here in terms of actually... Yeah, okay, that'll work. That'll work. We'll just keep it inside the plastic. But I wanted to bring it in a little closer so you can see that face. And they did a really good job on that. Very impressed with it. Because, if you're working off the old Super Friends, they didn't always have a lot of detail on the faces, A lot, and it's true even with just old style superheroes. Oftentimes they're identified by hair color, hairstyle. Superman spit curl and glasses really helps you're talking about Clark Kent when he's in that form, right? And of course, it's the costume that's the big thing. And so they did put a little bit of effort into the cheetah. Let's see if I can get this card off of here, taped onto the thing. I do, by the way, I do love this card art. I think it's really cool. Very Super Friends. So they put a little effort, I think, into designing the character on the old Super Friends cartoon. She doesn't just look like they reused Wonder Woman's face or something like that. And God knows, when we were kids watching these things, that would have probably been fine. You probably could have gotten away with that. But anyhow, I thought that was actually pretty cool. So I grabbed it, showed up. I'll get it out of there. I don't know if I'll do a full review on that one. I am going to do a full review, though, probably releasing this Friday, on the other thing that showed up. So I'm not going to take it out of the package right now because I'm going to do something more with this. But this is from White Elephant Toyz. Now they got a series of figures called Adventure Command that are basically based on the old Super Joes, G.I. Joe characters. This is one of them. This is an older figure that I got based on Atomic Mike. Very cool character. You notice he got the sort of translucent legs, so it's kind of a Bionic Man kind of deal here. So the Super Joes had a alien enemy, and this is based on that. They're calling him Gargon. You can see the art is freaking rad. It's a really nice presentation on the box. There's Atomic Mike. There's Gargon with his... Now, the original had a light up, battery-powered light on his chest. There's Reptilio and Darkon, the two of the bad guys. So, this is Adventure Command from White Elephant Toyz. These are really well-done figures. Great heft to them, very sturdy. These are figures that, frankly, in my opinion, you could probably give to kids to play with. They're going to do some damage because that's what kids do. But I think these would hold up better than a lot of stuff that collectors grab these days. So here you can kind of see size-wise the difference between Atomic Mike and Gargon. So I'm going to do a full review on him. Man, I've been looking forward to this one. I think that there's a YouTube channel, a guy, it's called Figure Fiend. I'm not sure what the guy's name is, to be honest with you. I watch the videos, though, all the time. And they're friggin', he does amazing stuff. He does, like, the 3D sculpts, will print these things, and he does do work for companies, and then he does customs himself, and they are freaking amazing. If you've never, go on YouTube, not during my stream, for God's sakes, come on, I need all the help I can get. But when this is over, go on YouTube, look up Figure Fiend, and dude, the videos he shows where he's making these things, unfreaking believable. And I think he worked on Gargon. I'm pretty sure he did. They also have a glow-in-the-dark version. So I've been waiting for this one, and I'm going, oh God, I hope it's not like super limited. I hope I'm able to get one. I was able to get one, and they're still for sale on the site, so you can still pick these up. If you go to whiteelephanttoys.com, they do a lot of cool stuff. They got like knockoff Planet of the Ape type figures called the Atomic Apes. They got the Adventure Command. They do some great horror stuff that I've shown off in the past. Teenage Bog Monsters, one of my favorite. So you might want to check them out. What do we got in the chat here? Ramey says, I got all my brother and uncle's leftover toys. Lots of Super Joes missing hands. And that's one of the reasons they did this. Because the Super Joes, because of what they used to put them together, you will often find them now still like on the card and fallen apart. They just fell apart on their own. And so there's an aftermarket on these toys, and they're like, why don't we do a very similar line, but we're going to set it up in such a way that, like, if you got, a Super Joe and it's fallen apart, instead of trying to put the body back together again, you could buy a body. So you can just buy like the bodies for these things and then put like the head on it, or you can buy a body with a head, but just put the costume type stuff on it and have all the gear. So they sell the stuff in pieces, and then they also sell complete figures of these things. A lot of them are really fun. So if you got like some Super Joes that you want to try to put back together again, White Elephant Toys is the place to go look. Manowar says, oh, it makes me wish I still had my Big Jim. Oh, yeah. The Laser Vet. I know, that was Big Jim's pack, right? Oh, that's some cool stuff. And I've looked at a few of those online, and I haven't pulled the trigger on buying anything because I'm always looking for like a pretty good deal. But if you take your time, you can find stuff at a good price and kind of fill out your collection. But yeah, Big Jim's another one. Really cool stuff. So you might want to check out White Elephant Toys. Really, 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 really groovy stuff. That's kind of my new stuff that I got this week that showed up. Let's look at some coming attractions, though. NECA. They've been doing their Ben Cooper costume kits. And a new wave's coming out with the old Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. I'm actually going, damn, I wish they would just make the full-size, masks. And, well, okay, not necessarily. I don't need a full-size vinyl costume to walk around in, but the masks would be really, really cool if they could do the, the Vacuform. Because that War Duke is really just rad. Like, I would put the mask up at Halloween time just as a decoration. We got a few that we've done that with, newer masks. That would be really cool. But it looks like we got War Duke, we've got Strongheart the Paladin, and Zarak, the half-orc assassin. Very cool concept. And I'm like going, were these actually made, or were they not? I'm not 100% positive if they actually produced any Dungeons and Dragons costumes back in the day. So these might be based on those. I think I like the Zarak probably wouldn't have been. If anything, it would have probably been Strongheart and War Duke. But you might want to check these out. You can pre-order them right now at Big Bad Toy Store, Entertainment Earth, The Chosen Prime, and Toy Geek. $73 for the set if you're into it, delivering first quarter of 2026, so you're not getting in time for Halloween. Ramey says, my Walmart has those Ben Cooper Nightmare Fuel toys, which I have never seen them out in the wild. Very tempted a few times, but I finally was like, you just don't have the space for these. You're probably going to have to let this one go. But I do like to show them off because I think they do a really fantastic job, and God, it is such nostalgia for, I was going to say kids my age. Yeah, I guess I'm a kid at this age too. But because, boy, we wore those things. And those masks were insanely uncomfortable. You had that little hole, and so like you'd be, fogging things up, especially if you wore glasses as a kid. They were terrible, and yet they were wonderful too. From Fantagraphics, this is reported at Publishers Weekly. They did a story on it. They're going to be bringing Hugo Pratt's Corto Maltese new additions to the U.S., beginning with a 132-page volume that collects short stories. It's called Corto Maltese, The Fable of Venice, and Other Stories. That's coming out in January of 2026. Oh, dude, Man-O-War, I had the Batman costume. That was one of my favorites. I had Underdog, I had Batman, and I had Popeye. Those are the three that I remember from childhood. And I still got some pieces. I did a video review showing what I have left of these old costumes a couple years ago, and a couple of the new ones that they were putting out. A new Batman and a new Darth Vader, I think it was. Yeah. You find that on my channel from like a couple of years ago. I know. And I thought about that too. Like, why not get ones that you actually had? And I just ended up not doing it. But so Corto Maltese coming out January 2026. And then they're going to collect the series into 6 additional volumes, full color, hardcover, each volume 250 to 300 pages. And those are going to start in the fall of 2026 coming out. Very impressive comic strip work. Now, they have released these, English translations before. The last time, I guess, was about 5 years ago. And apparently they're pretty expensive. So if you want to check those out, you might want to be on the lookout for them. I don't think you could pre-order just yet, but you might want to keep your eyes open for Fantagraphics. They got like an X account, so if you're on X, you could follow them and you could see what's coming out. And that's how I find out about a lot of this stuff, to be honest with you. Fabrizio Aiello has revealed the cover to Horace H. Hoover #4. I am a big fan of Horace H. Hoover. It's a very quirky, weird little comic, supernatural stuff. A guy who wears a old Hoover vacuum cleaner on his head. And there's a story that someday we will learn the origin of why he does that. It's very quirky, very fun. When I was reading it for the first time, the first issue, I was like, I got to a particular page. It was either the first or second issue. I got to a particular page. It's this 2-page spread of this sort of hidden supernatural library. And I was like, this dude ought to be writing Doctor Strange. Now, frankly, I'm glad he's writing his own book, but great creativity. There's a little Lovecraft to it, occult detective stuff. Super, super fun. So I've been collecting it. It actually says number 4 to 5 on there. But I think it is just number 4. He's going to be doing a Kickstarter or indie or Fund My Comic. I'm not sure which crowdfund. He's going to be doing a crowdfund for it relatively soon. So looking forward to that. The first 3 issues you can get probably from him. They're probably still up for sale. They're worth checking out. I really enjoyed that series. So glad to see that cover reveal. We see Horace in the front. We see something horrible coming up behind him. It's a great story. It really is. The Ben Cooper toys are $4 in my... What? $4? I thought they were more than that. Might be going and looking at a Walmart. My wife right now is like going, oh, crap. Thanks a lot for telling him this. Also saw Graham Nolan teasing the Chenoo 77. The Chenoo is sort of like a Bigfoot Yeti sort of creature. The original book involves him in Buffalo spreading horror, blood on the snow kind of stuff. Now, I didn't get that one. That was before I started jumping back into a lot of this indie small press stuff and crowdfunds. But he's bringing back a sequel, the Chenoo 77. So set obviously in 1977. In Graham Nolan's books that he's doing, there's Alien Alamo, there's the Joe Frankenstein, the Ghosts of Matacumba Key. They're all connected in a shared universe. So I'm going to probably be picking up the Chenoo 77 because it is part of that shared universe. And I'm really digging what Graham Nolan is putting out right now. He's doing some great stuff. So is Aaron Lopresti. You can follow both those guys. Like, they're on X. Lopresti does some fun draw streams on Wednesdays, the Graybeards. where they'll do a different, like, characters. In fact, I think they just did a poll for the next one. God, it was either the last one or the next one. It was going to be, I think, the Defenders. Speaking of the Defenders, at any rate, rural Mississippi, so not a big demand for pop culture toys. Oh, so what you're saying is I need to drive to rural Mississippi to check out Walmart to find good deals. I'm sure, the gas wouldn't be that expensive, right? Gas is cheap nowadays, isn't it? Dude, I just filled up at a gas station like last week, and it was like $70, which, granted, it was not the cheapest gas at a gas station, but it's the one that was convenient. I'm like going, this is a guy who like hunts 50-cent and dollar bins for comics. Yeah, different Walmarts can reduce costs at their location if not selling well and want to clear out. Interesting. Yeah, well, I'm also no more Walmart online though. They've screwed me on a couple things lately. But anyhow, the Chinoo 77, you might want to keep on the look for that because he's got Escape from Monster Island is the other thing he's doing. Escape from Monster Island is the new one. He's pretty much finished up. They're getting ready to send those ones out to backers. So then he's going to start focusing on this one. So that should be fun. This is one, I don't know if this is new or not, but it popped up from Monsters in Motion is the website store or web store. Oh, St. George, Utah. Oh, yeah, that's not too far from Vegas. I've been up to St. George a few times. Great Shakespeare Festival there, Raimi. So this came up, Commando Cody. They're actually calling it, I think, Rocket Man, right? It's a 7-inch figure. I just wanted to show it off because damn if it ain't looking really, 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 really good. 1/12 scale, so I think that's 7-inch. It's $75, which is just out of my price range for something like that. 27 points of articulation, removable helmet. But if there's any Commando Cody fans out there who've been looking for an action figure, go check out Monsters in Motion. They got a lot of cool stuff there. And it does tend to be higher priced. They also got that robot from the Phantom Creeps. They also shows up in the Dragula video from Rob Zombie. The thing doing the, Anyway, they got an action figure of that, which I've wanted for a while. And it's like $120, I think. No, I love that. I love that robot, but I can't be doing $120 for that thing. No, sir. Fleetway Comics Archives is putting out War Eagle, the complete World War II adventures that were published in the Comet from 498, issue 498 to 518. That went from February of 58 to June of 58, plus short stories from Top Spot from 1958. So this is British comics. Book Palace Books is putting it out this year. 100 plus pages, never before been reprinted, apparently. So if you're into comic strips, World War II, aviation, War Eagle looks pretty awesome. Yeah, exactly. $75, Raimi. I know. It's like, dude. But I get it. Like, it's small. It's not small press. I don't know what you'd call it. But, when you're producing these things, like the stuff from White Elephant is a little more expensive too, because they're not mass producing 20 million units, and you get economies of scale when you do that. So if you're into collecting that kind of stuff, you do realize that you're going to be paying a little bit more. Dude, I finally gave up and popped out $60 for this Coco the Clown from Rockin' Pins because I'd been looking at it for a while, and I'm like, I'm going to do it for like my birthday. And it's $60. It's just a figurine. It doesn't move or anything like that, but it's really good. And you get it. If you're collecting stuff like that, you're going to pay a little bit more. It's just how it is. But I still try to be a little more on the thrifty side with some of this stuff. I tend not to go for the more expensive figures. It's got to be something that is really unique or really, really dig before I'll go ahead and do that. Every day there's stuff I'm going, oh, let me check that out. I'll look at it and I'll look at it. And I'm like, no, I can't do it. Can't do it. Obviously, I do give in quite a bit though, especially when it's a pretty good price. Okay. So War Eagle coming out. You might want to check that one out. So this is something that I don't know very well, but the art looked pretty damn good. And John Bua writer of Heroic Tales, has the John's Longbox YouTube channel. He said he was a big fan of it, so I gave it a look. And it does look pretty cool. Punchline number 17. So this has been a pretty long-running series for something that's kind of indie, crowdfunded. Done by Bill Williams, does the writing, inking, lettering. Colors by Marcio Frere. Pencils by, and I might be getting this name, I might be mispronouncing it. It looks like Jonesbas, or Jonesbas, Jonesbas, and Marcelo da Silva. Casacavit. Kind of sounds like it could be French, but at any rate, looks good. Story consultant Aaron Sparrow. 24 pages. You can get the digital for $3, the print for $7. Fulfilling is scheduled for October 2025. So this is live right now on Kickstarter, running till September 24th. But they do have a peek at issue 18 in terms of the art, which involves like character going back in time to meeting early version of themselves. I think this one it's crowdfunding in late winter, so you'd probably be getting it like early 2026, perhaps. I mean, it looks like they're pretty far along on production, and also a peek at issue number 19. So one of the things I look at when I'm looking at crowdfunds, the covers are always really awesome, right? But what's the interior art look like? And this is pretty darn good. I will say a lot of stuff that I see nowadays, there's clearly skill in the artistry, but what they sometimes lack is storytelling in the comic book format. Graham Nolan talks about a lot of this stuff on some of his streams or some of his videos. They're worth checking out because he's a pro at this stuff. But what I notice is a lot of times you get a lot of blank space in panels. So like a wide panel, and you have a character over here and a character over here looking at each other. Now, there are times to do that. In fact, Wednesday I got a review of Our Man Flint. Great old movie with James Coburn. And there is a particular scene with him meeting somebody where that's exactly the layout. But there is a distance between these two characters in terms of their personality and their history. And it makes sense having them far apart at first and then coming together, right? That's an artistic choice in the thing. But you find oftentimes, like, maybe I can find some good panel samples, So like on this one, you see that one shot down in the bottom where they're climbing these cliffs, and these cliffs are enormous. And you see the very small figures. That makes sense, right? But you see the rest of it where you don't get a lot of empty space in the panels, and it focuses in on people. And especially when you're doing a couple different characters together, you want to have a sort of overlapping, one character in the extreme foreground, other character behind. Sometimes, again, you'll show distance because it's telling the story. A lot of newer ones, they don't do that. It sounds funny, but there's a lot of very skilled artists who I think could benefit from getting the old How to Draw Comics the Marvel way. Again, I'm not saying the Marvel comics were the absolute perfection of the art, but they do show you how to set up interesting panels. And I want to say there's a comic artist, was it Wally Wood, who had something like the 9 comic panel designs that never fail. It was something like that. I'm actually now looking. I wonder if I could find it on my phone and see at least if I'm getting it right. Like 9 comic panels that never fail. I'm sure I'm getting it wrong a little bit, but it's something like that. Comics. Well, here it is. Oh, Wally Wood's 22 panels, or 20 comic panels that never fail. 22 panels that always work. There, I see it on hydrodcomics.com. Let's see if I can find this thing. Do they have the examples? Yeah. It's probably stupid to show it like on my phone. Yeah, it doesn't really work. But at any rate, And then it starts bringing up everything else in the world. Look up Wally Wood's 22 Panels That Never Fail. It gives you a really good idea of that kind of stuff. But this I liked. And that's what I look for. Like, does the interior art look good? Because a lot of folks, they hire a great artist to do the cover. And then when you look at the interior art, you're going, not quite ready for prime time. Yeah, Wally Wood was unbelievable. I miss the variety from Ramey Butler. Yeah, that's kind of the thing, right? He's saying a lot of comic art looks the same nowadays, and it kind of does. It kind of does. Now, that kind of happens at different time periods where something becomes hot. But, yeah, you don't see as much individual style. But, if you look at a lot of the great comic book artists, well, for example, because I was talking about this in that Plastic Man review I did, Plastic Man starts in Police Comics #1, right? I want to say issue 7 is where Will Eisner's The Spirit makes his first appearance, right? And one of the things you notice is the first couple, it's not the Will Eisner art that you know. And then it looks like he starts kind of figuring out what Jack Cole is doing in Plastic Man and starts imitating it a little bit. And of course, he ultimately finds his own style, which is gorgeous. I mean, absolutely gorgeous. But, dude, even Will Eisner was not like a genius the very first time he put pen to paper or pencil to paper. And sometimes you will see that with artists, that their early work looks a lot like an established artist's stuff. And they get comfortable with that, and then they find their own style. But it takes time. And if you have a lot of folks who are working indie, right? If you're working at Marvel or DC, once you're sort of on, once they've decided they like you and you got the potential at least, you're cranking out a lot of pages every month, potentially. And it gives you that practice and that experience that you can start figuring some other things out. I mean, Giffen, of course, did a lot of copying of other artists. At one point, people kind of got PO'd about it, because it looked like he was a lot of people felt like he was ripping off this one European artist, And I think that maybe goes a little too far, a little harsh, but Giffen's style really changes over time, as he's exploring different things. But yeah, look at early Byrne stuff, and it's like, yeah, it's a little John Byrne, but it's not what he ultimately kind of settled on. He's kind of exploring other stuff, and they're all patterning themselves on earlier artists. And I think with a lot of indie stuff nowadays, they just don't have enough pages that they're working on, that they're kind of finding their own voice yet. And so a lot of it looks very similar. And, hopefully as things pick up and maybe they get more assignments and stuff, they'll find their own way of doing things. But it does happen a lot of times. Yeah, that it looks... Oh yeah, I want to look. I want to check out that Plastic Man miniseries, because I want to say, wasn't that oh God, what was the artist on that? It wasn't. No, not Willingham. Oh God, he did. I want to say he did some like D&D stuff. Is it Phil Folio? I think it's how you pronounce his name. Phil Folio did comic strips in Dragon Magazine, some really cool ones, and also he did some sort of X-rated comics too, as I believe, which I've never seen. But at any rate, yeah, I want to say, was he the one doing that? Because he definitely had the comic-y sort of cartoony style that would have worked. Curse of Frankenstein. Back to business here. This is the last coming attraction that I found this week that was interesting. Hammer fans will find this Deluxe Collector's Edition 4K coming out October 14th, so in time for Halloween, from the Warner Archives. Lots of extras in this one. I don't think I saw a price on it yet, but October 14th. So it's coming soon. It'll probably be on Amazon. It's one of those kind of wider releases. So if you're into the Hammer Curse of Frankenstein and you want it in 4K, you're in luck, because it is a coming for you. Okay. We'll start wrapping up here real soon. Wanted to talk about a couple movies that I saw this last week. Phantom of the Paradise, first watch for me. This is from 1974, directed, written by Brian De Palma. Stars Paul Williams, who also does the score and some of the songs, singing some of the songs. William Finley, George Mamoli, Harold Oblong. Interesting guy who shows up in a lot of stuff from the period, including, I think, a Laverne and Shirley episode. Archie Hahn, Jeffrey Commodore, Garrett Graham, who kills it as Beef. Almost in this too briefly, except the story needs him to be there kind of briefly. Jessica Harper, who was kind of her breakout role. Horror comedy musical. What struck me about it, I'd been hearing good things about it for a long time. It just showed up on YouTube free with ads. So I'm like, dude, strike while the iron's hot. Watch this sucker. You know, if you like Rocky Horror Picture Show, if you kind of dig Tim Burton stuff, you might want to check this one out. I was telling my daughter, I'm like, you got to watch this thing. What it was this was a guy, Brian De Palma, and obviously other people too, bringing an artistic vision to the screen very successfully. Like every camera angle, every look, every set, the costuming, etc. You can tell was like, this is exactly what I want. Now, okay, there's always going to be a certain amount of things you can't quite do, but by and large, man, this thing really has that sort of artistic integrity to it, you know. Now, subject matter, musicals, what might not be for everybody, but like if you just love film and especially film design, dude, you should check this thing out. But there's also some deeper story stuff in it, to me, much more so than like Rocky Horror Picture Show. Plays with Faust, plays with The Picture of Dorian Gray a little bit. Phantom of the Opera, but it it's about the music business. It's about wanting something so badly that you're willing to go too far for it and how it can destroy you. So a lot of cool stuff like that, but worth a watch. It's really friggin' good. And there's a lot of great moments in it. It's no Kiss Meets Phantom of the Park. Dude, I got that online too, from Jarrett Keene. He goes, is it as good as Phantom of the Park? I'm like going, dude, it's even as good as the Chips episode that co-starred or guest starred Donnie Most as Moloch. Yeah. No, it's it actually kind of references Kiss a little bit in it. That sort of look. Like there's some dudes with some makeup kind of similar. And anyways, dude, it's a trip. It's pretty damn good. It's got some good twists in it. It's worth watching. I'd never seen it before. I was very, very, very happy with it. Now for something somewhat different. Lady Battle Cop from 1990. Yes, it is basically a kind of RoboCop ripoff with a Japanese flair. And I think it was like a direct-to-video sort of release. This is another one that's been popped up, on my radar for a while. Finally, I'm like, I'm going to watch it. Dude, this is a good example of making a film with respect for the genre, with respect for the audience. There's no contempt for the concept or the audience in this thing. It is a woman who has this battle armor on, who's fighting bad guys. There's some great little action set pieces in it. It is just a solid little action movie. And it shows you what you can do when you don't have contempt for your audience. Disney, okay? If you just embrace it. If you have people who go, superheroes are kind of stupid, but I guess I'll make this movie anyways, get them out of there. Get them out of there. If you can't embrace what superheroes are, you shouldn't be working on it. Even if you kind of think they're stupid, but you're professional enough to be like, okay, but let's get into it. Let's produce what people dig. You can make something good. But if you have sort of contempt for the concept, if you have contempt for the people who like the concept, it's not going to work. This is a flick that really kind of works. It's a lot of fun. And if you've never seen it, you might want to check this one out, man. It's very much, dude, and there's some wild stuff in it too. There's like this guy with psychic powers that she's got to take on. And the bad guys are bad enough that like you're very pleased seeing them come to awful, horrible ends over the course of this thing. There's some English acting. I found a version that was subtitled, and it's a little rough. There was a better, cleaner version, but it was just all in Japanese. In all honesty, I probably could have watched it and it would have worked. And maybe I'll sit and watch it anyways, just to see like a clearer picture. But now that I've seen the thing, but some of the acting was not the greatest in the world, but it still works as a friggin' action flick, and it's not like as deep as RoboCop, has some like political themes to it and things like that, and it's kind of camp in a way. But this one's a little more straightforward. I mean, it's Japan. They love battle armor and they love robots and they love giant guns and lasers and stuff. And they always do it right. They always do it right. Oh, Man of War, before I forget, Barnes & Noble has 50% off on Arrow 4K and Blu-rays till September 14th. He picked up Andromeda Strain. Man from U.N.C.L.E. RoboCop 4Ks for 25 a piece last week. That's pretty awesome. Lion Maru G is awesome. I will check out Lion Maru G. I know I love the names and the Japanese names for things, like you're going, what the hell this means, but it is hard to forget them. You know what I mean? Like, if you look up Lion Maru G, you're not going to find, 15 other things with that title that aren't what you're looking for. Like it's specific. You're going to find what you're looking for. So Lady Battle Cop, you might want to check out for just a fun, it's not real long, fun action flick, some cool little action bits, some special effects that are not always the greatest, but it's fun. And the girl in it is cute, and she's in battle armor shooting bad guys. Again, embrace the concept. This is one from 1929 that I threw on. On YouTube, there's a channel called Pizza Flicks. Has a lot of old stuff. So Hell's Heroes, and it was kind of one of those like, it's probably like an old, a real old, early soundy Western flick. It's probably whatever, fine. Dude, holy crap. It is an adaptation of the story Three Godfathers, published in 1913, that was later adapted into a movie with John Wayne. That's basically about these three bad men, crooks, on the run, who find a woman in labor, and she delivers a baby, and she asks them to be its godfathers, and she does not survive labor, not much long after that. And these complete, utter, horrible human beings suddenly have this baby to take care of. And they got to figure out, they got to get it somewhere where it will survive. And they're in the desert, and they're extremely low on water. And dude, this is pre-code, so they're able to go a little further with some stuff. There's a couple things where you're going, ooh, that would trigger some people nowadays in a big way. But I was really impressed. It's directed by William Wyler, good director. Not as well known nowadays, but he's got a lot of solid movies under his belt, and he worked for a long time in Hollywood. Stars Charles Bickford, Raymond Hatton, and Fred Kohler. And I hadn't heard of most of them either, although one of them was actually in a movie that I had just watched called Whirlpool, and I didn't recognize it. I mean, he was a little younger here because that was from 1950, so it was 20 years later from this one. But if you've never watched Hell's Heroes, it's a soundy and some really nice shots of the desert. I mean, and there's a really cool sequence with an undertaker's wagon, where it's like, it's moving and you're following it and stuff. Some cool shots in this thing. And apparently the little California town where they filmed it still have that undertaker's wagon. You can still find it. But the bank that gets robbed in the early part of the movie apparently burned down a few years later. So that's gone. But there's still a little remnant of this film existing that you can see at a little museum in a town. But Hell's Heroes, I was kind of blown away by this thing. It's a Western, but it's really a lot more than a Western. But some really solid performances, and sometimes acting back then, it doesn't feel quite right nowadays because of the style. There's a tiny bit of that to this one, but it worked pretty well for the most part. But dude, there's some scenes in this thing that are they don't pull any punches. One in particular where I'm going, okay, I kind of get what's happening. And it's like, oh, they went a little further with that than I thought they were going to. Because again, once the code comes in, I almost said comics code, not comics code, but similar concept. Once the code comes in, they would have sort of suggested what was going to maybe happen, and that would have been it. This one, it don't just suggest it. It goes a little further than that. So, Hell's Heroes, you might want to check out. Yeah, Raimi says Pizza Flix is amazing. It does. There's a lot of good stuff on Pizza Flix. And they got some silent stuff on there, too, that's worth watching. Okay, boys and girls, that's going to do it for this stream. Coming up later this week, I already mentioned a couple things, but Justice League America number 35 and Justice League Europe number 11 on Monday, on Justice League Monday. We're going to do flip-throughs on that. Our Man Flint review on Wednesday. Man, it's a great flick. It's actually, it's from the era of like Bond is big, so let's do something Bondy. But it actually has a little bit more of a message to it than you typically get from a Bond film. And James Coburn is just cool as hell. So they call it a Bond parody, and I'm like, Coburn took it seriously. And it is kind of the character's a little over the top, but he makes it work. Cool flick. And on Friday, I'm going to do a full review of old Gargon. So you might want to tune in for those this week. Let's bring down the slideshow. So that'll do it for Dad Live in the Den number 29. Hope everybody has a really blessed Sunday. If you're going through some tough stuff, hang in there, stick with it. I hope it'll get better soon. Look for some help if you need it. But let's end with, as I always do. And also, let me thank everybody in the chat. Finns, Raimi Butler, Man of War. I saw Liberty in there too. And of course, Lady Wendelin, who I believe is running off now to do something with a friend of hers. Let me end with a thanks for everybody in the chat. And God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. And trust me, man, it's ultimately worth it. Like, even people that kind of suck, just be cool. Just be cool with folks. Kind of greases the wheels in society. And, in private at home, you can be like, God, that person really sucks. But in public, just, be cool. Be cool. Trust me, it's going to make for a happier world out there. Not as much stress. And I think we could all use a little bit of less stress right now, especially. But be cool with everybody and have a little bit of fun. Watch some stuff you love. Read some stuff you love. Go outside, take a walk, enjoy nature. Kind of, again, reduce that stress. Don't focus on the negative. Try to find a little positive in there. You got to balance things out. And I will hopefully see you again soon in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye, folks.